Okay, okay. Take your seats. Settle down, settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Good morning. It's Thursday, October 23rd, 2025. My name is Joe Bakanovic. I have been dubbed the professor by one of your classmates. If I ever get my hands on that Mr. Spikes, I might have to just thank him. I don't know. We'll see. This show's going to be on Bigfoot, sort of, kind of. Or at least the first half of it is. The last half is what I really want to talk about. But before we get going, let me just confess. I have a tendency to believe in certain quote-unquote conspiracy theories, but I don't believe all of them. I have in the past told you I believe that TWA Flight 800 was shot down by some sort of missile. I have told you that I believe the Oklahoma city bombing was that was some sort of conspiracy of some sort. I do believe Ruby Ridge was another conspiracy. I have some doubt about the stories swarming around Waco, but I tend to lean toward there's something fishy that happened there. I have doubts about UFOs and aliens. I tend to think that that's got more of a terrestrial supernatural origin than actual UFOs. So I'm up in the air about those things. But no, I'm not a 9/11 truther for reasons that I've gone into before. I don't believe in chemtrails, at least not the way everybody else does. And lately, I've got a problem with these Charlie Kirk assassination theories that are running around the internet for like good reason. I watched the video of Mr. Kirk getting shot within an hour after it happened, before they scrubbed anything or edited it or whatever. And I could have sworn I saw an exit wound, blood and everything. And that's why I immediately told some people that I was with that that's not a survivable wound. He's dead. I knew what I saw. Now, when you go back and see those videos, it's not there anymore. So, yeah, I think there's a conspiracy going on there, but maybe not the one that everybody else is talking about. Like there was no exit wound from a 30-yard 6 inside 100 yards. Shot in the neck? No. There's going to be an exit wound.
That didn't. Yeah.
That round goes right through you.
I've shot a 30-06 through a tree at that distance, and there was an exit wound.
Yeah, that round keeps on trucking. Well, it was a miracle. Maybe. But today I want to talk to you about, actually, the second half of the show is what I really want to talk to you about. But I want to go over Bigfoot. Only I want to do this in a serious way. Now, if you're looking, I wish that we had, I told T-Rex that we were doing this show today. I don't think he's going to join us, but I really wish I had a Bigfoot skeptic in the audience today to at least shoot questions at us and object and challenge and push back, because I think we could have a good conversation about this. And if you want to call in, all you got to do is email us real quick, joe@theroadtoconcord.com. I'll have Charlie watch for an email from time to time. We do that. That's our way of screening to make sure that only trusted, verified people are allowed on the show. We're not going to give your name if you don't want to, but we don't need people calling up to tell me I have a snake in my ear. You know, this guy. Anyway, Bigfoot. If you are interested, if you're curious and you want somebody who's handling this in a fairly serious manner, I suggest this dude here. A Bigfoot investigation from Cabin in the Woods on YouTube. That would be my suggestion to you. I don't agree with everything he does, but he's at least going over this in a much more rational and serious manner than most people do. So now what I want to do is go to something else I made up. Whoops. Okay, hold on. I tried to put something else up there for you. It didn't want to go. There we go. All right. Sorry. Me fighting with computers. Okay. Let's start right here. This is a very famous image from the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I'm not going to recover the stuff that's been out there forever and ever. Amen. But this is a well-known image, and we have to start here. This is purportedly a female Bigfoot. She's been dubbed Patty. She was filmed on 16 millimeter film, color film. This was in something creek, Big Creek or whatever, something creek, northern part of California, mid to northern part of California in the 1960s. And this has been examined 17 million bazillion ways to Sunday. And we're going to go over some of the more interesting points that have been pulled from this video. But I want to explain a few things real quick. Most of the time when you see these video clips, it's very jerky and it's very grainy. That's because the original video has been lost to time. Nobody knows what happened to it. So what you have are first, second, third, fourth, fifth generation copies of the original video. Now, there has been a very detailed forensic restoration conducted of this video, where they went back and they took every copy they could find and they took frame by frame, they pixelated it, and they gathered all the information. Because every information in every frame of the video, when you take copies of videos, sometimes it'll capture this data and lose that data, et cetera, et cetera. So when they put it all back together, they got as close to the original video as they could, and they stabilized it. If you ever find that video, it is very clear. There is a lot of detail in that picture. Now, they've also gone back and analyzed this, given the lens he was using on this old-time video camera. And everybody assumes he's using a 17 millimeter lens. There was an expert in the field who examined it and said, not possible. It had to be the wider 25 millimeter lens. The people who know what they're doing have ways of figuring this out. It's math, it's science, it's established. And when you assume that he's got a 25 millimeter lens, well, then she's 7.5 foot tall. But if he was using the 17 millimeter lens, she's like 5 foot tall. Well, that's not possible, because we know that from the known heights of other things that were in the area. You have to remember, this area was very well examined after this video was taken. Also, people will object. One of the objections is, hey, he runs toward the Bigfoot. Everybody else runs away from it when they film it. He's running at it. So that proves that it was somebody in a costume. He wasn't scared. Have you ever been around combat photographers that are looking through the lens of their camera? They have this nasty habit of forgetting where they're at and what they're doing. They're so focused on the shot in their camera lens that they forget they can be killed. And they tend to run toward whatever it is they're filming. So that objection doesn't hold, at least not for me. One other thing I want to point out real quick. We're going to get to this later. Notice that there's some shine in this picture. That means that this isn't fur. This is hair. Fur does not shine in bright sunlight because it doesn't have natural oils in it. And there's a difference between fur and hair. I have miniature schnauzers because they don't have fur. They have hair. It's why they don't shed. Fur sheds, hair doesn't. That's one of the reasons that my wife and I have miniature schnauzers. They're more hypoallergenic. They don't shed. They don't have dander issues, so they don't cause as many allergy problems for people. Well, hair has natural oils. Fur doesn't. The oil is what shines. If this was a costume, it wouldn't shine. Same with her skin. So, next picture I want to show you, if I can get it to cooperate here. This is an image of a costume up in the right. And this is a picture of a gorilla down in the bottom right. And it's a picture of Patty from the rear up in the on the left-hand side. And what they're showing you is how costumes, the folds in the costume droop and don't follow anatomically correct lines. So if you can see my cursor here, this fold here under the arm on behind the right shoulder blade, well, there it is in the gorilla. Grayback gorilla picture right there, that same fold. It is not in the costume. You can see the spine where the skin, the musculature condenses onto the spine right here. There's a little indentation where the spine is. You will not have that in a costume. And then you see that's little glutamus maximus, the little butt hump. You see that in Patty, but you do not really see that. You see a crease in the costume. This is probably close to the best they could have done for a costume in the 1960s. I do personally know, have sat with and talked to Hollywood special effects artists that you have seen their work. You've seen his work. He made the T1 robots. There were 2 of them from the original Terminator with the triangular tracks that are in the beginning of the movie, and they have the 2 arms and everything with the guns. You'll see them in later Terminator movies too. It's the very first Terminator robot that was created by Skynet, laboratories or whatever. My buddy made those robots, and I've got pictures of him working on them. So he at one time had Steven Spielberg's home phone number on his phone. He's worked with this stuff before. He told me that they did not have the technology to make a costume that would look like Patty in the 60s. And he said it would be very difficult and expensive today. And that costume would probably have to be glued on the actor. And they have glue that can do this, but there are other problems. But if you've got a suit, right? Well, here's a problem with the idea that this is just a suit. There are other problems. If you watch the video closely, especially the high resolution restored version, this area right here is circled in red. There's a bulge in the thigh muscle of this creature, and it flexes as she walks. And there are anatomical biologists who have pointed out that that's very indicative of an injury that humans can get It's basically a rip in the musculature where one muscle, an outer muscle, has been ripped and the inner muscle is bulging up through the rip. You can have this from overstraining your leg or something. It eventually will heal, from what I understand, but it takes a long time. That bulge, first of all, dang near impossible to replicate even today. But second of all, who would have thought to do that? A bulge on a female costume, because Patty has mammary glands and they move like they should move, which is not possible to replicate very easily, especially with the materials available to them back then. So we have these things that people have pointed out that most folks don't. The skeptics don't ever address this. They address other things that they try to keep the conversation specifically on the areas that make their objections the strongest. But here's another problem. That very iconic pose that Patty has right there, humans can't do that. And here is a picture of the guy who claimed to have been in the costume. I can't remember his name, but there on the left, those left three pictures. That's the dude who claims, and that's what he claims is the suit. That's the suit he presented. Two problems here. First of all, the headpiece doesn't even come close to matching Patty. The spike isn't tall enough. Second of all, he can't turn the way she does. She's turning more at the waist than he can. He cannot do that. Notice that that's the best he can turn, and that's his duplication. He's proving that he was the one and that's the suit. Patty on the right in the original PGF picture doesn't look anything like the suit. Nothing. So the guy who claims he was wearing the suit, what he demonstrated doesn't work. Notice that suit doesn't shine. It's got light and dark areas, but it doesn't shine the way Patty shines. That's because it's artificial fur. It's fake. And then there's this. When you watch the video, there's two things to note. Patty's toes come up when she walks. You cannot do that if all you're wearing is a pair of stompers. And that would require some mechanism that pulls the toes up as you walk. So if this was animatronics, you'd have somebody off to the side operating the toes as the creature walked. There's no sign of any cabling to this creature. And if there were cables running up the pant leg of a costume, you would see the line pull itself. When the toes come up, the line would tighten, and you'd see that in the very front part of her leg, her shin. You'd see some sort of movement or evidence there. There'd be a sharp break or a line. We have no evidence of that. Plus the gait she's walking with. Humans have tried to replicate this. They cannot. She's not walking like a human. There are people who have gone through this and they've put, the little white dots and everything on a person, little balls that they use for doing CGI, and they videoed it. And they tried to get the person to walk like Patty does, using the same sort of points on the video from Patty. They cannot get a human to walk like this. And that's because she's not walking with her legs front to back. She's rotating at the hip. Humans can't do this. And this is why her feet are 1 foot in front of the other. She also lifts her leg up off the ground in a way that you and I cannot do. Now, there were tracks recorded. This is one of Patty's prints. That's a casting of the footprint from the animal in the Patterson-Gimlin video. Notice right here in the middle, there's a hollow point. You and I don't have that. We have an arch. This is called a mid-tarsal break. This was recorded at the site. Look how deep it is, too. That's a fairly deep print, which means that the animal making those prints was fairly heavy. And it's also, 15, almost 16 inches long? There are humans with a foot that big, but not this wide. The anatomy of the Bigfoot prints, and this is not a bear. They know that. There was a film taken of these, the creature that made these prints. Up here on the top, this is a composite of the pictures that Patterson and Gimlin took of the castings. They're making the castings. That casting right there is one of the castings that we still have of Patty. Now, notice something. If this was somebody in a costume wearing stompers, just some sort of fake device to make fake footprints, you would not have what you're seeing here. Now, these were individual pictures, but they've lined them up. Notice how they've arranged them so you can see where, like right in here, where the scenery, the rest of the ground matches and flows. So this is just a forensic alignment of the photographs. There's nothing fake or funny or fishy about this. Notice how the footprints are right in front of each other for the most part. Right here, mid-tarsal break. Right here, mid-tarsal break. Right here, a big mid-tarsal break. Stompers will not do this. They can't. Plus, notice how none of these prints is actually the same. You can see more on the second one like the first one on the left. You don't see the pronounced toes because that's in a sandy area. Now, the second print is right foot on the first, and the second print is a left foot. You can see the toes splayed more out to the left-hand side. And then the one that they're casting. And then again, another left print. This time the toes aren't as splayed, but you can see that they're fairly close and similar. So this is the thing, the Bigfoot tightrope gait. It's like it's walking a straight line. That's because the hips are rotating and it's putting one foot in front of another. Humans don't walk that way. We have a straddle gait, left, right, left, right, left, right, down at the bottom. Our pelvises are designed differently. Now, why is this a big deal? Patterson Gimlin comes from the mid to late, I think it was 1967. Well, these Bigfoot prints were recorded long before that. If you're running around in stompers, it's going to be hard enough to make the stomper work. Second of all, it's going to be really hard to make the stomper as deep into the dirt as these prints are. You're going to have the stomper with a mid-tarsal break cast into it, carved into it, which is going to cause you a problem here. Because notice this picture in the left. It's almost like and if you can't see this, I can't help you today. This is a visual class type thing. I'm going to blow this up a little bit and drag it over. This picture here on the left, this is the right foot. Notice how the ball of the foot has dug a ridge here, dug into the dirt, because this is soft dirt. But then there's that mid-tarsal break. A stomper can't do that. Cannot do that. Now look here, this one. This is the left foot. You can see the mid-tarsal break here. See the toes. Well, a stomper is rigid, and a stomper's toes would not be able to come up like they did. So the next left foot is over here. Notice that the mid-tarsal break is deeper here, and the toes are in a different position. That's not a stomper, folks. Some sort of hard carve. There was somebody who actually made a stomper, like a Bigfoot that you put on the bottom of your feet to wear. They made one. It cost them $5,000 to make the set, a little over $5,000. Hollywood made it for them. And they made it out of a rigid polyurethane foam, rubber. So it'd be kind of like flesh. And the people went out to make the tracks. And you can find this on video too. Didn't look nothing like this right here. Didn't look anything like it. Now they claim it proved that all the tracks people have been finding are fake. It didn't look like this. Plus, the person that was doing it was not able to do this one foot in front of the other. Oh, by the way, that measured distance between tracks, that's almost 5 feet. The average distance between a human's footprints is like 30 inches. That's how we learn to march, 1 30-inch step. This was 5 feet. So if you're doing stompers, you're going to have to be running. Remember, now you've got big wide feet on, so you can't run 1 foot in front of the other like you're used to running, because the width of the stomper is going to hit your inner legs. It'll obstruct the gait. So you're not going to be able to do this. There have been people who have tried and claim that's what they did. And the people who are serious about researching this have shown that they were faked. See, the BFRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization, and those people who are serious about this work, they call out the fakes faster than the skeptics do, because they're trying to maintain their credibility. Here's what we're talking about: a mid-tarsal break. And you can see this in the film with Patty. On the right, the heel comes up off the ground, And you have just the ball, your arch comes up, and you have the ball of your foot. So when we walk, the dirt gets pushed back by our ball of our foot and our toes. That's not a mid-tarsal break. That's the ball of your foot. But when a primate, like a gorilla or something, walks, the heel comes up first. In this area right here in the middle of the foot, that's the mid-tarsal break. That area right there will be left in sand, and then the ball of the foot pushes down and it leaves a hump in the print. That's the evidence of a mid-tarsal break. Humans cannot do this. Stompers cannot do this. And if you watch the video of Patty, you see her walking that way. So right here, the mid-tarsal break, that's that bone right there, shows you the human arch doesn't work this way. And there's the evidence. And by the way, that's a depiction of Patty's footprint. I've come to recognize this one. That's another thing. These footprints that they get from all over the world in some of the weirdest, most remote places where you wouldn't expect a hoaxer to be laying down fake tracks. This is where they find these things. And in some cases, they've been able to trace individual creatures over big areas because the track is the same. And then this is another Bigfoot. Notice this is not Patty. This is a lot wider. This one here is 4 up by the ball of the foot, almost 5 inches wide. There's the mid-tarsal break right in there. Here's another one. This is, I don't remember who did this, but this is 1967. I think this might be another one of Patty, if I'm not mistaken. But this right here is the mid-tarsal break. And that's the casting. You can see how deep this goes into the ground. That takes a decent amount of weight. Now, here's another thing. This casting is taken in Georgia. And you have to be a print expert to see this. So you have to be a tracker, but there are other castings that show it better. It's just the images I was able to find online aren't that clear. They were smaller. You will find this in videos if you go looking, but there are dermal ridges in this casting. Those are the little ridges on your fingers and toes and your balls of your palm prints and your fingerprints. That's what makes your fingerprints, dermal ridges. But right here, that's a skin fold from where the toes are jointed. You could do this, vertical stress creases in the skin from callousing, skin folds. You could do that in a tracker. You could. A stomper could be made that way. But each and every track would be the same, identical. Well, they have found footprint trails that have gone a couple hundred yards where each one of these tracks is very slightly different. And the dermal ridges stretch, and sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. The skin folds are different and in different places. That's exactly what I would expect from a functioning, biological, living creature's foot. The critics never address that. There's just people have made stompers. They've shown you the stompers. This is how it works. No, not all of the prints that have been collected. In fact, the Bigfoot Research Organization people will quickly call out fake prints, and they'll blab it everywhere because they're trying to maintain credibility. Here's another one. This is known as the cripple foot print. This was found in the 60s. This is, the castings are off on the left. The drawing of the anatomy of a primate is on the right. Now, notice how the cripple foot is not only crippled, but the center toe is deformed. And so is the one on the left. Humans get very similar injuries. And anthropologists have explained this. You can find videos of this. Dr. Meldrum is an expert in this field, and he will explain this to you. But on the right, you see where the bone structure would be on a primate. This would be slightly different in a human. If this had been a human, these two bulges here would be slightly farther back. Which means if this was a fake print, somebody with intricate knowledge of both podiatry, your feet, and medical knowledge about this type of common injury. It is relatively common in the medical field, where you see lots of injured people. This will show up more often than it would for you and I. But they have to have knowledge of that, but they also have to have knowledge of the anatomy of a primate. And they had to know how to alter this to look like a primate injury of this type. And then they had to leave these tracks in a very remote part of the world and hope somebody would find them. Now, does that really Honest to God. Now, be honest with me. If you're a skeptic, does that sound credible to you? This right here is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence for Bigfoot that exists right now. Yes, sir? Break time? All right. We'll come back after the break. We're not done yet. We might end up spending the day on Bigfoot. I want to show you something else when we come back. So 3 minutes, and we'll be back in our seats. All right, welcome back. I should have stated we're talking about evidence for the creature known as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, abominable snowman, Yeti, Yowley. Thing is, it's known about by many different names across the world. And that's something I should have mentioned early on, is that almost every culture and every continent has this legend of this creature. They're not all identical. They have different colors, different sizes, but they're all fairly large, two walk on two legs, bipedal, and they all look like a human being, cross between a human and an ape. These stories go way, way, way back. There's legend and lore in the Native Americans of this, but you're going to find these things in cave paintings or depictions of what could be these creatures in cave paintings. And it's also been found in records of archaeology in the Akkadian Empire. This is back by Tower of Babel time. The Akkadians called them Akula or something like that. And the description in the archaeological records that we have found and deciphered talk about Bigfoot, essentially. So, I mean, this isn't new. It's not a relatively new invention. We have eyewitnesses. We have video. There are hair samples that have been collected and tested. and they come back as unknown primate, closest match, but no exact match to anything, but unknown primate. And they can tell they come from a primate. There's different types of ways that the forensic analysis can tell you. They've also found DNA. They have found DNA in the North America, comes back unknown primate. That has happened, which means, at one point I thought this was Gigantopithecus, but apparently it isn't. Whatever these creatures are, we have other prints too. We ended with cripplefoot print, but they have handprints that were taken, like, you would take your fingerprint off of a window. They have a handprint. The most famous one comes off of a window that's 12 feet off the ground. It was in a woods, on the window of a cabin that's built up on blocks. So the window is already, about 6 feet in the air, 5 to 6 feet in the air in the cabin, but it's up on blocks. So it's about 11 to 12 feet off the ground. And they took a forensic, big tape. They dusted it for prints, and they've got a palm print and fingerprints of this, whatever did it. And it's got a hand that would dwarf Shaq's hand. It's a huge hand. That exists. They have castings of an area where one of these creatures laid down in the mud, and they can see its hip, part of its leg, and they see where its knuckles was pushed into the mud. And they casted it. And when they flip it over, you can see the creature's buttocks, legs, and part of its upper side, and then you can see its hand and forearm and knuckles in the casting. So we have more than just footprint castings. We have a lot more than that. Then they have this. They have a series of vocalizations that have been recorded. And some of it goes back to the really interesting ones. If you really want to hear something weird, go back and find what they call the Sierra recordings, because it happened in the Sierra Mountains. That one's spooky, creepy to the point where I want it to be fake, because it sounds like these things are talking to each other. They went back and they did forensic audio analysis on this. It was recorded with a boom microphone and a cassette tape by three gentlemen that were up in an area of the Sierra Mountains when they recorded it over several different trips up in this area. They first encountered these things, whatever it is, when they were hunting, and they recorded it. And at one point, they were surrounded by several of these creatures, and they had made a cabin. They found themselves boxed into this cabin, and they were terrified. They were scared, and they had weapons with them. And that's where the bulk of the Sierra sounds came from that night. That was the last time, from what I understand, that group went hunting up there. Others have gone up there after the fact, and they've had some encounters, but these vocalizations have been thoroughly analyzed, and others from around the northern parts of this continent, the United States and Canada. They all come back as unknown animals and no known, animal on record. Now, here's the thing. Some of these recordings, especially the Sierra recordings, have vocalizations that are higher and lower than humans can make, to the point where we can't even hear them. Other animals would be able to, but we can't hear the full range of the vocalization that's being made. They have other vocalizations that have been recorded that the forensics will tell you, we don't know what it is, but we know it's huge because of the volume that would be necessary to create the sound, the lung capacity that would be necessary to create the sound, especially the bassness of the sound and how long it lasted and how far it's reaching out into the recording. They can get a rough idea of distance from when a recording was made. All sorts of cool things, man. So you have the vocalizations. Then we have this. These are two pictures of two different, supposedly Bigfoot, Sasquatches from a family unit. Now, I did a show on Bigfoot a couple years back. And when I did it, I told you I was skeptical of these two pictures. Too perfect. Well, the gentleman who took these pictures, his name is Todd. I'm going to show you a picture of him in a little bit. You'll find this on the YouTube channel I shared with you. But he's got names for these two. And there's a third one. He's taken a picture of a third one. And apparently these are all the third one and the guy on the left here, the male Sasquatch. are children. He thinks Todd, the guy's name's Todd. He thinks they're children. The one on the right, he thinks is the mother, female, but he hasn't gotten pictures of the adult male, who he says he at least not clear. He's got a nighttime picture of this creature, and it's, 10, 11 foot tall, maybe taller. But it was taken through starlight scope. That one chases him sometimes and scares him, according to him. All this could be faked. Yes, I get that. But when I first showed you these, I was very skeptical of them. I was thinking, too perfect. And there are a lot of people who say this is animatronics, because these are stills from a video. And there's a lot of reasons people will say, well, this is fake. And I used to agree. Not anymore. This is the male. This is the female. Now, what's important is the tree, the type of pine tree that she's behind, that tree that's right in front of her, and you can tell it's fairly close. And these are zoomed in. He, according to the guy who claims to have taken these pictures, he's about 80 to 85 feet away when he took these pictures. And he said this is as close as he can get. He says they do not like to be seen. They try to hide from him. He says this is the best he can get. Okay, I'm going to believe him. These trees that these creatures are hiding in, they're very unique in that the needles are always between 1 and 1.5 inches long. Usually about an inch long. Very seldom much less than 3/4 of an inch, but they're almost always an inch long. This is just the way this tree grows. We're going to use this, or the gentleman who put this tape. This is from the link that Natasha shared with you. So you see up here, he takes this needle and he makes a rough length, and he says this is 1 inch, and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, it's not 15. It should be more like right here, maybe 12, because of the angle he's on his head. Remember, those of you who don't know me, I make a living by analyzing pictures. This is what I've done for the last 24, 25 years. I'm good at this. Yeah, I know I'm bragging, but I am very good. And I've been recognized by my peers as spotting things that most people didn't for pictures that had been known for decades. I'm good at this. So I'm not going to make this 15. I'll make it closer to 12. But that's still important, because he's going to do the same thing here with the female. This is closer to being accurate. I'd have stopped here, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's probably closer, because he should have gone one more due to the angles. This is called perspective. If he had done this perspective-wise, he'd have probably drawn a line from here and a line from here, and you come out, you got to find the vanishing point. But yeah, so we're dealing with creatures whose heads are roughly 12 to 15 inches wide. Why is that important? Well, what he's done here is he has scaled his ruler. Now, this is important. He did this correctly. He shows you his scale. He's assuming that that's a 1-inch needle. It could be 1.5 inches. Remember, he started by going to one of these trees and showing you. He's scaled that to here, and he's held his ruler up, and he's superimposed himself until he gets to the point where he shows you his head is roughly 6 inches wide. It's actually a little less narrow than that. It's 5.5 inches. I have a size 7.5-inch hat. My buddies in the Marine Corps called me pumpkin head, because most people wear a 6 3/4 to a 7 1/4. I've got a large head. Mine's only 6 inches wide. Well, that tells you that these creatures he's filming, if they're real, are anatomically impossible to be human beings in a costume. It's not possible, or at least not from the pictures we're seeing, because they wouldn't be able to look out the eyeball holes. But it gets better. Now, the people have objected. This is the creature on the left, the male creature. They said this is a picture of Todd. And they say, look, it's just Todd using Photoshop to morph himself into the creature. And these pictures are fairly convincing, right? Except this is Todd on the right. That's real Todd on the right. That's a picture that was taken by the gentleman who put this video together. He interviewed Todd. He took that picture. That's Todd on the right. That's not Todd on the left. That's a Photoshop of Todd that's been distorted so that they could give you this fake proof that Todd faked his video. Well, this is just as bad as the people who fake evidence. Yeah, I got the big head. So this is Todd. And now there's something, and he goes and he scales it and he shows you this would be Todd over the creature. It's not the guy who took the photograph. Now here's something else. And this applies to most every Bigfoot face picture that we see that's real. This is an anatomical proportion. And when I was younger, I was in art classes. I wanted to become a commercial artist, and I learned how to draw human anatomy. I know this is correct. Just like you are, usually a human being is 7 to 8 heads tall. You know, the size of your head, that's how you scale the proportion. Your arms will be so many heads, whatever. Females are a little shorter. But we were taught how to draw on proportions of heads to make head proportion to the body. And it works very, very well. One of the things that we learned about faces, your eyes are in the middle of your head and there's proportions there, and we use the proportion of the eyes. So what you do here is your eyes are usually 1 eye width apart. The distance from the in corner of your eye, the inside corner of your eye to the inside corner of your eye is usually, for every human being, is going to be roughly 1 eye width apart. Well, when we do that to the creature, whoopsie, we come with 4 eye widths apart, which would mean if this was a costume, the person wearing it would have to be looking out the nose holes to be able to see. So, okay, well, it's just animatronics. Well, in the video where this comes from, they go back and show you why it's not animatronics either. And all of the objections for the people claiming this was animatronics, all of those objections are met in the video. So here's my question. We've had bodies. There have been bodies recovered. Not in modern times, but there have been bodies recovered. They've made it into the newspaper. There are pictures. There are eyewitness reports of this. There have been skeletal remains recovered and sent to the Smithsonian. Everything subsequently disappears. Okay, there's the conspiracy theory, blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that. The point is, we have recovered bodies of things. And remember, everything I've just shown you, even the latest videos, those still pictures from the video clips, all of this came out before AI. I haven't used anything from the last 5 years. I don't want to, because, AI could really cause us trouble. So all of this comes out before AI. Well, the creatures that were, especially there's a famous one that was a baby Sasquatch, apparently, captured along a railroad track back in the late 1800s. Why is that important? Nobody knew about gorillas at that time. What? Yeah, it was before gorillas were discovered. What? Yeah. You didn't know that gorillas weren't discovered until the 20th century? You know that woman, Gorillas in the Mist, the lady's name, I can't remember, but she's very famous for the one who proved that the inland gorillas were real. I mean, for hundreds of years, people would go into the jungles in Africa and come back talking about the giant men, ape men, monkey men. And that was just a myth until she went and proved it. Now we see them all the time. Got them in zoos. So it couldn't possibly be the case with Bigfoot. Now, what if you have a small number of this species in any given place, and they're nomadic, they move around with the seasons, they're very intelligent, and they don't want to be seen. This is their native habitat, and they tend to live far away from man. What if they hate man or they're scared of man for reasons we don't understand? Well, yeah, you're going to have a hard time finding these things because they're actively avoiding you, where the gorilla wasn't. Not that smart. Doesn't know man's looking for them. Well, what if these things are a little bit smarter than the average primate? Maybe as smart as a human with a 60, 70, 80 IQ, smarter than the average smartest dog. And they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be found. Well, it'd be very easy for them to hide from you. And it's an environment in which they live. Plus, they're reported to have eye shine. Humans don't have eye shine. Eye shine means that they have very good night vision. That's where that comes from. That's what causes the eye shine. That's why you and I don't have it. It's generated by animals that have a decent night vision. That's why these things are probably nocturnal. They can see you before you see them. So why is it that so many people are skeptics of this, but they will believe chemtrails. It's chemtrails, man. No, it's just contrails. Nope, it's chemtrails. Okay, I can show you over and over and over again that it's actually what it pretends, people say it is. It's just condensation of the hot air coming off the jet engine. I can prove that. I can demonstrate it. I can scientifically replicate it, and I can affect it too by changing the temperature of the air that you're flying in. Oh no, they're just turning the chemtrail on and off. No, they're flying through hotter and colder sections of the atmosphere. I can prove this to you, and yet you still believe in chemtrails with no real evidence other than a supposition. But you'll reject Bigfoot. I give you pictures. I give you oral history that goes back to the oldest writings that we've found in archaeology. I give you cave paintings that match those old oral, written records. I give you oral records that match the cave paintings and the written records. I give you eyewitnesses. I give you still photographs. I give you video evidence. I give you footprints, anatomy. By the way, Patty's anatomy, doesn't match humans. So you go back and you draw the lines on her arms and the proportions of her body. It doesn't match a human. So if that's a human in a costume, that was beyond Hollywood fake. Okay. Done by a man who was mortgaging everything he owned just to be there. He didn't have the money to make this happen. So, okay, whatever. So I've got video and pictures of an animal that walks according to the way the physiology of an ape, leaves the footprints I would expect from an ape, not a human being. I have cripple prints. I have prints some of these gates have been measured at 6 feet from footprint to footprint. You can't do that, even with a stomper. You and I cannot do that. And some of them have been in mud that they've actually taken a stomper and put weight on it and realized that they're going to need 800 pounds to push the stomper that deep into the ground. You and I don't weigh 800 pounds. You and I can't carry 800 pounds to run around on our stuff. If we had 800 pounds on our back with our stomper, we're going to be making a stomper maybe a half-inch to a half-inch foot apart because we're not going to be able to jump with it. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Oh, well, Joe, they just had a device. They pushed it in. They put weight on it and all that stuff. Where are the other tracks? Where's the wheel tracks and the carts and everything else? They used a crane. Okay, well, where's the crane tracks 100 feet in either direction? Please. We got recorded bodies. We got DNA, dermal ridges, fingerprints, footprints. We got hair, vocal recordings. We've even got the smells associated with these things. And yet nobody wants to believe. That's more evidence of the existing of some undiscovered creature than you have for Bigfoot. It's more evidence than you have for the controlled collapse of the World Trade Centers. Well, Joe, I got proof that, jet fuel doesn't melt steel. It doesn't have to. Go take a physics lesson. All it has to do is weaken it. I've got an architect friend of mine. He says that most buildings are only designed to sustain hot fires for 2 hours. He says after that, the metal structures of their buildings, and he builds these things. He builds big, tall buildings, mostly hospitals, but stories tall. And he says after about 2 hours, any fire will weaken the structure of the building, no matter how hot it is. Any fire will start to weaken the structure. I said, well, what happens if you've got the box of the World Trade Centers and I take out 2 or 3 pillars on the outside wall, because that was part of the structure of the building, and then I have it in the wind blowing where that building starts to twist? I said, what happens after an hour or two of the blowtorch fire? He goes, well, the building comes down. He has no doubt that 9/11 is exactly what we saw on TV. He understands the physics, the engineering from an architect's perspective. I have the mechanical engineering. I understand what happened. Now, I still believe there was conspiracy in 9/11. I do not believe it was a controlled demolition. Why? Because I know too much about the physics. I believe the government knew who these people were and what they were planning to do and let it happen so that they could push the Patriot Act. Now, that I do believe. Clay Toller's being a smart aleck. He says Bigfoot is Cain's progeny for killing Abel. I don't know about that. I'm not going to speculate. I don't know what Bigfoot is. You've never. I don't believe in evolution, so it's not an evolutionary link. I don't believe they're UFOs. I don't believe they're interdimensional traveling beings. The closest explanation I would give you, the Akkadians call them Akula. Well, they call their demigods Apkula. One letter difference. Their demigods are the Bible's Nephilim. Literally, the Apkula are Nephilim. Just different word for the same creatures in a different part of the world. So if you wanted to tell me that Bigfoot is Nephilim, I don't know if I agree, but I'm not going to disagree. I don't know, because there are oral histories, especially in the Native Americans, of Bigfoot being man-eaters. They kidnap and eat human beings. And there are modern stories that this is what's happened. I don't know what to do with those. I'm more of a skeptic than you people might realize. I'm going to make you prove this to me. Okay? And I'm not sure I'm going to go with this man, but if they are, that's a point in favor of people who think they're just Nephilim, because the Nephilim were cannibals. They were man-eaters. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of all this. I do know this. There's enough evidence to convince me that we're dealing with a very real biological creature that nobody wants to believe in. But they will believe in, well, they'll believe lies too. TWA Flight 800, it was just a centerline fuel tank that exploded. Okay. How many of you had physics class? You can take a tank of jet fuel and throw a match in it. You know what's going to happen? Match goes out. You can do this with diesel. Go get a bucket of diesel, get a 55-gallon drum, cut it, fill it full of 5 gallons of diesel, throw a match in it. I've done this. I'm not worried about you going boom. Don't do this with gasoline. Do not do this with gasoline. But you can do this with diesel. The match will go out. Why? Diesel has a very low flash point compared to gasoline. Jet fuel has an even lower flash point. So I'm supposed to believe the story that a 1 amp gauge in the fuel tank ignited the jet fumes in that fuel tank. Well, fumes more explosive, Joe. Yes, I know, but they have a lower flash point than a 1 amp fuse is capable of generating. What? Yes, in other words, 1 amp, even if it arcs and shorts, cannot create enough heat to ignite JP5, JP8 jet fuel. Well, how do you know that, Joe? Well, because I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer before I switched to mechanical engineering, and because I've been a jet freak my whole life, airplane freak. My father was a jet mechanic. I've been around this. What was that comment that you threw? I was going to try it at my local gas station. Yeah, that I wouldn't do that, Natasha. You might get arrested. But that and the other thing, all the witnesses of the TWA 800, all of them say that they saw something come off of the ocean up to and hit the airplane. And the media, it was in a top of the hour, 12 o'clock news report, 12 Eastern time, that early on they found sticky brown residue substances on the centerline fuel tank and the backs of some of the chairs from the wreckage of the airplane, consistent with solid rocket fuel, solid rocket propellant. Exactly what the witnesses said. It was a missile. It was some sort of anti-aircraft missile that brought it down. Aaron Spike says, as a Black Hawk crew chief, he knows this is true. Yeah, you've dealt with this. So you understand what I'm talking about. Oklahoma Murrah building. I had a very well-respected 2-star retired general who used to deal with explosives show me the pictures from the wreckage of the Murrah building, where he shows me where the det cord was actually used to bring down the pillars of the building. I knew already that the Brescient's number of an AMFO, ammonium nitrate bomb, was too low to cut the rebar in the building like it had been cut which means that bomb could not do it. That's why the first World Trade Center bombing didn't work. They set an amphibob, bigger one, off right next to a pillar in the World Trade Center, and all it did is crack the concrete. It didn't cut the rebar, which is why the building didn't come down. That type of weapon cannot do that job, which means the damage to the Oklahoma Murrah building was from some other type of weapon. And I know that I've heard the recordings that, yeah, I know we're close to the end of the show, that there were unexploded ordnance found in one of the stairwells of the Oklahoma building. And we know from court records that there were 3 or 4 supposed government agents all working on setting people up for bombing that building. So that was probably a government sting gone wrong. Multiple agencies not talking to each other actually probably set it off. So that's why I believe that. You got to look at this stuff, folks. You got to look with an intelligent, reasoned, skeptical eye before you accept some of this stuff. Bigfoot, I believe because the evidence tells me there's something there. Chemtrails, I don't believe because the physics and the science tells me not that way. Weather manipulation, yes, not that way. So, yeah, this has been a fun show, I guess. A yuck, yuck, ha, ha for some people. But if you examine what's available to us and what has been demonstrated and proven using good, sound chain of evidence custody, because, you know, the BFRO cares about this, despite what people might tell you. They go to great lengths to make sure that what they report is credible. And they are the #1 debunker out there. They're real quick to tell you garbage. So, anyway, that's what, you know, fun, quick, easy, simple show. Charlie, any comments before I get us out of here?
No, this was fun.
I know that Natasha was a skeptic before she started helping us with the show. I've convinced her, I guess. See, I've brainwashed you into believing about hairy creatures that don't exist.
Oh, how dare you! You brought me facts and receipts and used logic and reasoning to convince me on your side. How dare you, Bakanovic?
All right, folks. We're going to get out of here for today. We're going to be handling the next 2 chapters of Dr. Heiser's book, The Unseen Realm, tomorrow. And that'll wrap the week for us. But this was just, this was an easy day for me. I enjoy this, but an easy day. We did give you a link if you want to continue with looking into this. If you're a skeptic, all I ask is that you hear him out. He's not right in everything he says. None of us are. But he's taking it more seriously than most of us do. And he does present the evidence from the people who have doctorate degrees in the specialty fields where the evidence is necessary. And I find it funny. Well, the consensus of the scientists is, except the scientists that disagree. You never want to listen to them. Most of them disagree for a reason, namely because they're not being paid to disagree. And oh, by the way, the scientists who do agree with the Bigfoot evidence, they've risked their careers to do so. Keep that in mind, too. It's kind of like the apostles saying, yeah, Jesus was raised from the dead, risking their lives to say it, up to the point of martyrdom. These scientists risked their jobs, their careers, and their livelihood and their reputation to do this. It wasn't done lightly. So just keep that in mind. Otherwise, we love you. We thank you for being here. Hopefully you had fun today. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.